Monday, December 2nd, 2013, regular meeting of the 35th Council of the City of Berkeley. Ms. Prince, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Blanchard?
Here.
Councilmember Edgar?
Here.
Councilmember Kadekel?
Here.
Councilmember Stedman?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Turbrack?
Here.
And Mayor O'Dwyer.
Here. The first order of business tonight is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Councilmember Kadekel,
Support.
support by Councilmember Blanchard. Are there any changes, additions, alterations? Hearing none, Ms. Prince, would you please call the roll?
Blanchard?
Yes.
Edgar?
Yes.
Kadekel?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
O'Dwyer.
Yes. And now would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now we come to the citizens' comments portion of tonight's meeting, when you may present your thoughts on issues not included on tonight's agenda. Council members will not engage you in discussion. If your concern needs to be addressed by a member of city staff or a department of the city, please sign your name on the sheet provided at the clerk's table. You may speak on a specific agenda item when it is being considered. When you come to the microphone, please state your name and city of residence.
Good evening, I'm Robert Wittenberg, and I live in Oak Park, just over the border. And Marcia.
I'm Marcia Swayze, and I live in Berkeley.
And we're here on behalf of the Holiday Parade Committee, so thank you for having us here. Your Honor, council members, Councilmember Kadekel, it's great to see you here. We're here on behalf of the Parade Committee, and we wanted to invite you, as well as anyone watching at home, and those of you here in the audience, to the 9th Annual Holiday Parade. And we also have quite a few things going on that day. For those of you that have been here in the past, from 2 to 5 p.m., there's a petting zoo, which is free. It'll be at the corner of 12 Mile and Tyler. From 1 to 4:30 p.m., there's trolley rides, and those, again, are free as well. It'll be throughout the shopping district, so it'll be up and down Coolidge and 12 Mile. And then 5:30 p.m. will be the Holiday Lights Parade, and it'll be on 12 Mile from Bacon Street, and it'll come here to City Hall. And the tree lighting ceremony will be shortly afterwards, as well as visits with Santa. So we encourage you, and if you guys want to bring, or kids want to bring your list to give to Santa, I'm sure they'll be happy to read through it. And then the last thing we have, which is which does have a cost, is the evening horse-drawn carriage rides. And so that will be on the corner of Rosemont and Coolidge. So there will be, I think it's a nominal fee, though, to do that. So we just wanted to invite everybody and welcome everyone and wish everyone happy holidays. And then I know Marcia wants to say something to the community as well.
This year we sent out a mailing, and we are like overwhelmed by the response that we've gotten from citizens. We wanted to know, everyone in the city, to know what was going on with the parade this year. Plus we asked for donations because unfortunately it costs money to put on this parade, and we are just thrilled with the response that we've gotten from the community. But, you know, $5, $20, $100, we are just overwhelmed, and we want to thank everyone for supporting the parade this year. This year is the 9th year for the parade. And my husband, Paul, he's one of the co-chairpersons, and he wished he could be here tonight, but he had another commitment, so I've come on his behalf to say thank you to the city for all your support. And it's a group of volunteers that put this parade on every year. It's not businesses, it's the chamber helps, yes, the DDA helps, yes, but it's volunteers. Robert Wittenberg is a new volunteer this year, and we're so thrilled to have him helping us, and we're always looking for volunteers to help us. And most of all, I just wanted to say thank you to all the residents for your donations. We truly, truly support you. We thank you so much for your support.
Thank you. Seeing no one else coming to the microphone, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Ms. Prince, would you please read the items on tonight's consent agenda?
Item number 1, minutes. Approval of the minutes of the regular 34th and 35th City Council meeting minutes of November 18th, 2013. And item number 2, proclamation P1313, matter of approving a proclamation recognizing Paul Levesque for receiving the Northern Michigan University Alumni Civic Leadership Award.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve
Support.
by Councilmember Stedman with support by Mayor Pro Tem Terbrak. Ms. Prince, would you please call the roll?
Edgar,
Yes.
Kadeco,
Yes.
Stedman,
Yes.
Turbrack,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
O'Dwyer.
Yes. And now, Ms. Prince, would you please read item number 1 on tonight's regular agenda?
Recognitions and presentations. Manner of any recognitions or presentations from the consent agenda.
I've asked Councilmember Blanchard to read Proclamation 1313.
A proclamation recognizing Paul Levesque for receiving the Northern Michigan University Alumni Civic Leadership Award. Whereas Paul Levesque, a Berkeley resident, taught band and orchestra to thousands of Detroit public school students for over 30 years, and whereas Mr. Levesque, having received a bachelor's degree from Northern Michigan University, was recognized this past September as an alumni from the university for having over 10 years of volunteer service to his community and for giving his time and talents freely to benefit others. And whereas in addition to being active in numerous community bands and orchestras, Mr. Levesque is a longtime member and Knights of Columbus office holder, instating a program within the Veterans Hospitals to ensure no vet is forgotten during the holidays. And whereas Mr. Levesque's additional volunteer service includes Boy Scouts of America Scoutmaster, Clawson Lions Club member, helping with activities for the blind, and finding homes for band uniforms destined to be thrown away by a neighboring school district. Through his efforts, a school in Ludington, Michigan received their first band uniforms ever. And whereas the Berkeley City Council and the city leaders recognize the importance and great impact that volunteer service has on the community. Now therefore the City of Berkeley hereby proclaims, Section 1, on behalf of the citizens of the City of Berkeley, the Berkeley City Council congratulates Mr. Paul Levesque for receiving the Northern Michigan University Alumni Civic Leadership Award and thanks him for his dedication and outstanding service to his students and for his contributions to his community. Proclaimed the second day of December 2013, the regular meeting of the Berkeley City Council, Phil O'Dwyer, Mayor. Mr. Levesque. Thank you for all you do. And for really that, you do a lot. So. Come up, let's come around here and. There you go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, thank you. Congratulations. Thank you, sir. Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Mind that
Mind
wire?
the cable
Mind the
wire,
wire.
sir.
Mind the wire?
Congratulations.
Do I make comments?
Yep, you can go right up to that microphone.
You know, when I got the phone call on this, it was quite a surprise. I should begin with Mr. Mayor, council, everybody that helped, all that good stuff. If you go back, way back, you know, there was a time when we had 12 or 14 bands in the Christmas parade through the Berkeley Men's Club and stuff. That was quite special, you know, and it seems instrumental music in itself seems to be kind of on the back side of things these days. But it's extremely, extremely, extremely important for kids to participate in these extra activities in the schools. Sometimes they're cut, sometimes they can't participate for whatever the reason. And that's why a few of us that I know of with the skills step up and try to help all those that are involved. And it's best summed up by a variety of stories, all of which I know you don't want to hear tonight. But it's very, I guess I have to share one with you that's kind of local. Years ago with the Knights of Columbus, a man by the name of Jean Blacchieri passed away. So we were doing color corps at the funeral home. And somebody got up and told a story how he was trying to teach his grandson some discipline and how to do chores around the house. So they sent him over to Durst Lumber to get a can of elbow grease. Well, the young grandson, you know, he's going to do what grandfather says, so he goes to Durst, and he had it all prearranged. John R. Lumber was right next door to Durst at that time. So he made a phone call and said, I'm going to send this young gentleman over to John R. and get a can of elbow grease. And of course, they didn't have any. He got over there. I need a can of elbow grease. My grandfather said I have to wax the car. I got to get some elbow grease. Didn't have any. So then they went up to Ace up on Greenfield to get some elbow grease. And of course, they made a phone call and they had it all prearranged that there was no elbow grease to be had for this young person. He's trying to do what his grandfather said. Well, they finally got back to Durst, and they said, well, there's no such thing as elbow grease. Clearly, the young man was livid. You know, I'm trying to do what I'm supposed to do, but there's no elbow grease to be had in Berkeley. So the bottom line is, it's not exactly what you do, who you do, or how you do it. Or, to paraphrase what I thought was a great principle, not principle, but President of the United States years ago, ask not what your city can do for you, it's what you can do for your city. By doing these little things, they all come together and they tabulate, and then all of a sudden you get these awards. Bingo! Northern Michigan now knows about Berkeley. There are more and more students coming out of Berkeley High School that are going to Marquette for college. It's a great university. And then out of all of that came an opportunity for me to boast a little bit for my undergrad. And incidentally, my master's is at Wayne State. So, I mean, you know, parity, there's equal time here. In addition to all of that, I just want to thank you so much for this. It'll go on the wall in the house with the other stuff. And I do appreciate the phone call and being able to come in to receive this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And now, Ms. Prince, would you read item number 2 on tonight's agenda, please?
Resolution number R 4713, matter of accepting the audited 2012-2013 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or the CAFR.
Is it a motion to approve R 4713?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Baker with support by Councilmember Kadekel. Ms. DeSessa.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, to members of our audience and our residents. You know, one of the most important reports that the City Council receives is our financial audit. I mean, many of you may think, obviously, the budget is a key document, and it is. But the audit is the report card, for lack of a better word, as to how we are doing financially. So if anybody wants to know how a city is performing, the best way to do that is to go to someone's audit. As a city manager, I can assure you that when I look at a city, I don't go to the budget. I go to the audit first because it gives you the key information, the most up-to-date information as to how a city is performing. Now, in accordance with our city charter, which is section 9.8, we are required to conduct an audit. And we have with us this evening our auditors, Plant Moran. They are an independent firm, and they will be giving you a short presentation as to where we stand. And we have with us this evening Ms. Beth Bailey and also Lisa Mineta, who will be both giving the presentation. So with that, I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. We're excited about the opportunity to be here this evening to cover the audit results in a very condensed format. However, if you do have any questions as we're going through, feel free to raise your hand and ask at that point rather than waiting until the end. We want to make sure that we're covering everything in as much detail as you wish. As far as how the city did in an overview, I would sum it up to say that the city is really holding its own. You'll see that once again, revenues have declined, and these are really revenues that are outside of the control of city management, city council. But your response to that really has been to cut back on expenditures. So your expenditures, you'll see, are actually below budget, and they're below your revenue levels, which basically means that you're living within your means. And as revenues have dropped, you've had a response where you've also correspondingly made important cuts in the expenditure side. A couple of other positives: you did reduce your debt by over $1 million if you look at the debt between the general operations and the water and sewer operations of the city. And you also added about $850,000 of investment in the community in terms of streets, equipment, and so forth, and then about another $500,000 get my numbers right here, $500,000 of water and sewer assets as well. Another positive, you've continued to meet your pension obligations. We do have a slide that will show you a little bit about the funded status of your pension plans, both of your pension plans plus your retiree health care. The key thing to keep in mind here is that the city is being fiscally responsible in continuing to make the payments as they come due for the pension systems. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa. She's going to go over the graph package that you have, and then I'll circle back and cover the letter that's addressed to the mayor and city council.
Thank you, Beth. Good evening, everyone. As Beth said, we'll go at a fairly condensed presentation of the financial results as we have in previous years. Our focus in most of the slides is on the general fund of the City of Berkeley, since that is the primary operating fund for the city. And what we're presenting here in our first slide is a 3-year history of general fund revenues broken down into the major categories. And so what we can see here, as Beth mentioned, is continuing declines in revenue, the primary driver of that being declines in property taxes, which, as we've talked about for a number of years, have had significant challenges, as all communities have in Southeast Michigan, with taxable values in the city of Berkeley declining by about 15%, which is actually better than what some communities have seen, but still is obviously a pretty significant decline in your primary source of revenue. Though we can see for these 3 years, revenues have been relatively stable, though declining, and those declines in property taxes have been offset somewhat by increase in other revenue sources, including licenses and permits, which is, on a bright note, seen some increases over the last couple of years that we're showing here. If we then look at the expenditures for the general fund, again broken down into the largest categories, here we can see decreases that were made in 11 and 12 to the expenditures to get them better in line with the reduced revenues. There was a very slight increase, about 2% increase in expenditures in 2013. There isn't really one particular category to attribute that to, but there were small increases within all of the categories. And again, for no particular single reason caused that, there were small increases in personnel costs and healthcare costs. But again, just a very small increase from 2012, and actually was 3% under what was budgeted. So it was anticipated that those costs would increase slightly in 2013. So all in all, expenditures were less than revenue in the current year, which is always a good thing, and fund balance within the general fund increased by about $70,000, which, if we look at the next slide, this really tells the story of what's happened here in Berkeley over the past 6 years. We can see it starting at the high point in 2008, when those property tax decreases were really starting to hit home. We can see that fund balance, which is the equity in the general fund, declined pretty significantly for 2 years, but then the city reacted, cut expenditures, took measures necessary to live within means, and has been able to actually increase fund balance over the last 3 years, which is something that's definitely noteworthy, and the city should be very proud for having accomplished that. In this slide, we look at the components of fund balance. The last slide showed the total fund balance of the general fund, but we do look at it and present it in the financial statements in a little greater detail, because there are certain pieces of fund balance, for example, the restricted fund balance that can only be used for public safety, library, community promotion, though the majority of fund balance, about $2.4 million, is referred to as unassigned, which basically means that there are no specific restrictions on how that can be used. And that $2.4 million represents about 27% of the city's annual budget, or about 3 months' worth of expenditures. So again, that's a healthy position, and certainly what we like to see at our communities. Next, we do change our focus a little bit over to the water and sewer fund. Total revenue in the water and sewer fund was about $5.5 million in the year ended June 30th, 2013, which is an increase of about 3% over the prior year. Expenses were about $4.5 million, which actually was a slight decrease from the prior year. So this fund did add about $1 million to its equity for the year. Something to note, though, that far right column, the $12.7 million, that's the total equity of the water and sewer fund. However, the vast majority of that does represent what's invested in the capital assets, the infrastructure of the water and sewer fund, so it doesn't represent a spendable form of equity. The smaller portion, the unrestricted, which is cash and accounts receivable, makes up the other 2.7 million of the fund. The last slide, as Beth mentioned, we did want to highlight the funding status of the city's retirement system. So we have the pension, the general employees pension, the public safety pension trust, and then the other post-employment benefit obligation. And part of this, the reason we pointed out is because there are some changes coming to how these are accounted for, and Beth will talk about that in a little greater detail when she talks about our letter of comments and recommendations. But what we have here is the most recent actuarial reports for these funds. So there is a little bit of a lag in when we receive these reports from the actuaries based on the work that they do to estimate the actuarial valuation of assets, which is the orange column in each of these, and then also the total actuarial accrued liability, which represents their estimate of the liability that the city of Berkeley has to current employees who are entitled to benefits when they retire, and also for those employees that are already retired, the total liability that they earned prior to retirement. And so they'll compare the assets to the liability. And right now, the difference between those two doesn't show up as a liability within your financial statements. It's something that's disclosed in the footnotes, but the new standards that Beth will talk about further will result in that gap between the orange bar and the blue bar being recorded as a liability, which has not previously been done. And so we can see in the general employee pension, that's about $5.7 million. That one is about 71% funded as of June 30th, 2012. In the pension trust, that gap is about $5.2 million. And then clearly in the other post-employment benefits, that's where a larger liability is. But for the pension and OPEB, as Beth mentioned, you are annually making the payment that the actuary is telling you should make in order to fund this liability over a longer period of time. But because of investment earnings and methods used by the actuary, there are points in time where you're not 100% funded. And that concludes the graphs that we have. Are there any questions on those before we move on to the letter and our comments?
Any questions for Lisa? Councilmember Blanchard?
Just one quick question. I noticed you said that the date is a little lagging, but June 30th, 2009 seems like an awful long time ago.
Yes. So for the retiree healthcare system, you are able to use the same report for 3 years. And that is allowable under the standards by the GASB. So the city is in the process of getting an updated report, but yes, that is definitely very old compared to where we are today. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. If I may add, what happened was, back in 08, 09, we were negotiating contracts, and healthcare was a major issue in those contract negotiations. And we wanted to make sure that when we did the 09 study that we captured the best data available at the time. So the 09 study is really 10 because of the contract negotiations with the labor unions and the new healthcare that went into place. If you'll recall, we had negotiated benefits, larger deductibles, et cetera, et cetera. So the report gives us, as Lisa has mentioned, multiple years of valuation in the 1 year, and we will be going out end of this year for a new study. Thank you.
Thank you.
And one thing to point out, too, while we have this slide up here, is the other post-employment benefits or the retiree health care. As David mentioned, the liability at June 30th, 2009 is around 17 million or so. For the valuation that had been done previously, I want to say it was 20-some million. So the changes that you made during that negotiation process really served to bring that long-term liability down into it's still a big number, and it's like starting a pension system from scratch. You can see your assets there are fairly small in comparison to the liability, but you are paying more than just the annual healthcare premiums for retirees. You are able to squeak out some additional to put in towards that pre-funding level, and that's what will help you over time get to where you want to be with the funding level. Because that one's, the funding is very low in comparison to your pensions are about 70% funded, each of those.
So Beth, that refers then to our GASB contribution.
Well, yeah, that would be your GASB 45
Right.
contribution. Pension is also a GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board contribution as well. But for the pensions, when the actuary tells you a dollar amount to put in, that's actually in the state constitution that local units of government must pay the exact dollar amount that the actuary tells you to put in. So you're required to actually pre-fund your retirement or pension. Your health care, though, you're not required. The actuary gives you a number, and you have to pay, obviously, current premiums to your insurance carrier. But beyond that, any extra that you put into the fund is totally optional at this point. And you have been, if you hadn't put anything in, you wouldn't have an orange bar. So you have been putting in money as you can, squeak that through in your budget. So we commend you on having something put aside in the trust that over time will continue to grow, and hopefully you'll be able to continue to budget to put something over and above the premiums in there. I'm going to cover really quickly the letter. It's a report to Mayor and City Council, June of 2013. I'll just go over the highlights of this letter. There are actually 4 parts. Part 1 starts on page 3. And this is a required communication for those charged with governance, which would be the mayor and city council. And we're required to point out anything that is noteworthy for you as the leaders of the community. So we do have 2 items. These are similar to what we've had in the past. The first one has to do with segregation of duties. We do perform an IT review when we're out doing the audit. And during that review, we noted that there is a user within the city that has administrative access, which means that they can give reward or award access to other people within the city, upload new versions of software and so forth. And they also have access to post transactions in the system. We did double check all the entries and transactions and didn't find any issues there to be concerned about. If this access is ongoing and continues to be necessary, we just recommend that those activities be logged and reviewed on a periodic basis. We understand with staffing sizes that sometimes it's not really practical to split those duties. Somebody has to do it. So we're just suggesting that the log be reviewed on a periodic basis. We also had a few audit adjustments, not very many. These would be year-end accruals where we would have worked with Finance Department on some adjustments related to accounts payable, accounts receivable, capital outlay, deferred revenue. The Finance Department would have gone through to calculate the dollar amounts. We would have worked together to kind of propose the entries and make sure that those were recorded. So again, nothing to be concerned about, just closing or audit type entries that needed to be made. Over on page 5, we talk about accounting estimates. So anytime there are numbers in your financial statement that have to be based on an estimate versus an actual cash receipt in or cash disbursements out, we're required to bring that to your attention. Really, the liability numbers here, the blue numbers for both of your pension systems and your healthcare plan, really constitute the most significant sensitive estimates in your financial statements. Everything else is pretty much based on fact, but these numbers are based on a lot of assumptions as far as how long will people work, what will they earn in a monthly benefit payment, how much will healthcare costs go up, how long will people be receiving their monthly checks or their insurance premiums. So the actuary has to work with a lot of different assumptions, and our job is really to look at the assumptions and the methodology and make sure that they seem reasonable. And we would agree with the methods and the assumptions that were used here. One thing that we're noting at some communities that we haven't really noted here, which is a good thing, is a lot of communities are having to go through a kind of an extensive process of estimating amounts that they may be charged back for taxes that are advanced to them through the delinquent revolving fund. And here in Berkeley, you haven't had very bad experience with that at all. So that's actually a very positive thing, because that can really wreak havoc on budgets if you're getting reimbursed and then ultimately having to repay the county. So that's good news. On page 7, we do have a couple of internal control items. The first one relates to the Public Safety Pension Trust. So your pension is in two different places. Your general employee pension is actually with Municipal Employee Retirement System of Michigan. Your Public Safety Pension Trust is administered basically in-house. The assets are with a trustee, and the trustee and asset managers are recording activity related to the investments on a daily basis. You are getting some investment activity reports on a regular basis. What isn't happening on a regular basis is the recording of the investment activity in your general ledger. So you're recording anything that you're responsible for, which would be things like tax distributions and the pension payments. But the activity that's happening within the trust is being recorded at the end of the year. And we're just recommending that you consider recording that on a quarterly basis. We don't have really big concerns about it because you're being given periodic investment statements. Your board is looking at those on a regular basis. Individual money managers are doing things on a monthly basis, but just a recommendation that it be recorded within your accounting records on a quarterly basis. It just has an additional check. IT general controls, couple of things here. One would be, right now the city is periodically checking the user access of different people around City Hall to see which programs, which software people have access to, because not everybody should have access to every program. And we're just recommending here that that review be formally documented. We do realize that it is happening, but we'd like to see that documented on a regular basis. And then there also is a feature in your accounting system where you can produce what's called a non-modifiable log of all transactions, and we just recommend that somebody review that for any unauthorized transactions. We won't get into a lot of detail there. At the bottom of page 7, we did have an item on bank reconciliations. There were 2 bank reconciliations that were not prepared within 6 weeks of month's end, which is sort of the best practice that we would like to see. And this happened during a time when you were short-staffed in your finance department. And as soon as the staffing level was brought back up, that issue was corrected, and we didn't see any ongoing instances of that. Over on page 8, we have some legislative and informational items. The first one is related to the pension system and that change that Lisa mentioned in her part of the presentation. There's 2 new GASBs, which again is Governmental Accounting Standards Board. They come up with the rules that we have to follow for what ends up in your financial statements. And they have a new pronouncement that will come into effect with next year's audit. Next year you'll have some expanded footnote disclosures. And then the following year, for the June of 2015, you'll actually see these assets and the net of the assets and liabilities here. So in the first, for your general employee system, the difference between the orange bar and the blue bar is about $5.7 million. For the public safety, it's about $5.2 million. So if you add those together, there's about $11 million of unfunded pension. That will end up showing up on your, what's called your government-wide financial statement. Not in your general fund, not in your water and sewer fund, not specifically within those funds, but on your government-wide statement, you're going to see those dollar amounts showing up on your financial statement. And it's going to going to make your overall financial condition not look as good as it does today. But the thing to keep in mind is nothing has changed with your financial situation. It's just strictly a reporting process that needs to be undertaken, and we'll make sure when we're doing the presentation to explain what that impact is and how you can feel a little bit better about that, because I know it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment to see that on your balance sheet. On page 8, we also talk about the new EVIP requirements. The EVIP is the Economic Vitality Incentive Program. This is the portion of revenue sharing money that comes from the state of Michigan that has some strings attached to it, where the city actually has to go through and there's always 3 different categories. This year, the first category was accountability and transparency, which you've already done. That was producing a citizen's guide and a performance dashboard. putting a lot of debt information out there, and also publishing a projected budget report. Category 2 relates to consolidation of services. This is a repeat from last year. And this year, when you're looking at this, which is due in February of 14, you have to include an update on what you said you were going to do last year, whether those plans were actually implemented. If not, what were the barriers? Why weren't you able to implement it? And you also have to try to come up with at least one new proposal for either collaboration, consolidation, cooperation. They've added a couple categories, innovation and privatization. So it's a little bit broader what you can do, but they basically want to make sure that communities are being as creative as possible with these types of initiatives that hopefully would save money. So they're not saying you have to consolidate or collaborate, with a neighbor or with the schools if there's not going to be any cost savings. Instead, they would then be looking for this innovation or privatization. So we can help you with that if you need any assistance, but basically it's just coming up with something new that you're going to do to try to save some money. And then category 3, unfunded accrued liability plan. The state is really wanting communities to take a look at this unfunded liability. So this would relate to not only the pension, but also the health care in the last column there. What they would like everyone to do by June 1st is list all previous actions that were taken to reduce the unfunded accrued liability. So in your situation, you could talk about the fact that the healthcare number was a lot bigger before you made the adjustments through the contract negotiation. And then also another more detail about additional actions that you could take. And if there have been no actions that have been taken, an explanation as to why you can't take any additional measures. So again, you might need to take a look at that specific requirement, and if you need any help with that, we can try to help you work through that. But each one of these categories is worth 1/3 of the dollars that you get from the state for EVIP. On page 10, we have a discussion about the potential elimination of personal property tax. And this is somewhat subject to change, but back this time last year, the legislature actually had passed several bills that over time would phase out the industrial portion and also impact the commercial portion of personal property tax. So personal property tax would be the tax that businesses pay on the equipment and so forth that is within their buildings. The buildings and the land are called real property. That's not being impacted. It's the personal property, the equipment, manufacturing and so forth that's within the actual buildings. And besides phasing out the industrial portion, another piece of this is to exempt businesses that have $40,000 or less of taxable value tied up in this type of equipment. And what they're saying is you go through a process to determine how much you're losing from the repeal of personal property tax. And then what's supposed to happen is with a vote, a statewide vote in August of 2014, they're going to be asking the residents to allow the state to take some of the money that's currently being put into use tax pot of money and instead earmark some of that as a replacement for local units for some of this personal property tax that will be decreasing for you. So in theory, if everything works out, if the vote actually passes, if the money is there from the use tax, if the money is actually budgeted to be reimbursed to the communities, you could get 80% of what you're losing in personal property reimbursed to you. You can also ask for what's called an essential service assessment, which would only be an assessment on industrial property, and that would allow you to capture that extra 20% that you're out, but only for the part that's used for public safety type expenditures. So it gets to be really complicated. There are some calculators out there to try to help you through that, but I would just caution you as you're going into your budgeting season here to keep in mind that come July 1st, 2014, with that levy, you're not going to be able to levy personal property on these parcels that are under 40,000. And if everything passes over time, personal property will be significantly impacted. With that, I think the last one's retro pay. We've talked about that in the past, that you cannot have retro pay on expired contracts. I don't think that that's been an issue here. And then there are also these EVIP-like requirements that are now being tied to your, what's considered your Act 51 funding, which is your street money that you get, the gas and weight tax. You also have to go through some EVIP-type requirements now in order to kind of earn that. But there's a lot of information here. All you really need to do is comply with Public Act 152, and I see that you have that on your agenda for later tonight to actually, I think you've opted out of that. So that would be all you need to do in order to meet this requirement, which again doesn't even kick in until September of 2014. But I think with what you're doing this evening, you'll be fine. And with that, I want to make sure that I thank the finance staff, David, Lori, I see is here, Sue, and also Jane for their help, and all the help from everyone around City Hall that helped us out during the audit. Everybody is always very cordial and very well prepared. We appreciate the cooperation. Any questions?
Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a quick question under the personal property tax. I think it's a typo, but it says key provision to the act phases out the industrial portion of the tax over a none-year period. Is that should be 9 years?
Yes, we saw that. We saw that as we were sitting there too.
Okay.
None years, not really.
That's a short time.
Yeah, it's like right now. Any other?
Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, I mean, in terms of the EVIP and the personal property tax, the bottom line is we're getting less money from the state. That's the trend, and that's going to continue.
Yes.
At least for the short term. My question is specifically on Category 3 that you mentioned for the new set of EVIP hoops that we have to jump through. Since we have been, over the last few years trying to put money into gas B45, there are a number of municipalities that have not done anything. Since we've been doing that, would that hurt us in Category 3? Would we have to do more, or would that count retroactively for us as a credit for that, and then things that we're doing in the future?
Right, that would count retroactively for what you're doing, because anytime you can put dollars in, that reduces your future dollars that are going to come out of your pocket, because once the money is there and it's in trust, all of these dollars in orange are in trust, meaning the city cannot get their hands on those for any reason other than to pay for the retiree benefits. So anytime you're able to put money aside, then in theory, that is going to be invested, and that's going to earn a rate of return, and that investment income is going to help you to have less that you need to take out of your current budget in order to get where you want to go with those plans. So I would think that would help you.
Would it be fair to say that with what we've done over the past few years and where we are right now, we're in good shape as far as these 3 EVIP criteria that we need to meet in terms of maintaining that we continue to get some state shared revenue?
Yes. I think with the Category 3, I think what the state is most concerned about is that communities don't go in the opposite direction, or don't, through negotiations and what have you, end up with liabilities that are growing. The thought is, these legacy costs, here you've been managing them, but in some communities, they really are causing deficits and cash flow issues, and when you look long term, there's not going to be enough money to operate the city. So I think the state is saying that they want to see these liabilities capped and decreasing, not increasing. So that's really what they're looking for.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Councilmember Cadecle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. More of a comment. When Lisa was giving her report, she's mentioning how the fund balance has been increased in the last 3 years. These numbers don't happen by accident. And I just want everyone to know that the administration, Mr. Sabuda, Ms. Fielder, Ms. Redden, Ms. Bias DeSessa, department heads, it takes the employees, everybody working together to make these numbers happen. And they're not happening just out of thin air. And I appreciate everybody's effort for the hard work they've done.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We're certainly thankful that of the work that you guys have done on this as well, and the guidance and the attention to detail that makes the city run well and able to pay our bills. And the city council, who set the policy and who cast the votes to cut things that they would prefer not to be cutting. These are not always easy votes to take. And so I commend the city council as well for their courage and their leadership in this entire effort. So if there isn't anything else, are there any summary statements, Mr. Finance Director?
I would just like to, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to thank everyone, Mayor and Council, Ms. Vice DeCessa, staff, department heads. It was truly a team effort. Plant Moran, nice job as usual. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Now, Ms. Prince, would you please call the roll on R 4713?
Kadeco?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Edgar?
Yes.
O'Dwyer?
Yes. And now, Ms. Prince, would you please read item number 3?
Ordinance number 0713, matter of approving the first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 138 zoning, Article 3, general provisions, Division 1 accessory buildings and structures, and Article 5, district regulations, Division 17 schedule of regulations, Section 138 through 157, notes to the schedule of regulations of the Berkeley City Code. Set date certain, second reading December 16, 2013.
Is there a motion to approve 0713 with
Motion
the
to
date 7?
approve 0713 with the date certain of December 16th.
Support.
Has been approved by Mayor Pro Tem Turbrack with support by Councilmember Kadeco. Ms. DeCessa.
Mr. Mayor, under this item, you may recall we heard our first reading at the last council meeting, and this was to address the accessory building section on this item, if you may recall. Please know that our planning commission has reviewed this ordinance. They are recommending it. They did hold a public hearing back in October of this year. Now, just to give us a brief summation of what this ordinance is all about, I've asked our city planner, Ms. Amy Vanson, to join us this evening and give us summation of this ordinance. Ms. Vanson?
Good evening. We talked about this at the last council meeting, but I'll review it briefly. Our ordinance regarding accessory buildings and structures, there limits accessory buildings to 1 story, not more than 15 feet tall, and the first floor area can't exceed 800 square feet or half the ground floor of the main building or house, whichever is greater. And when you start measuring that, and when you figure 15 feet is measured, well, the height of a building is measured from the ground floor to halfway between the peak and the eave, an 800 square foot garage can give you quite a lot of attic space. And so because it's limited to a single story, administration has limited the access to that attic area. There was an appeal heard of our decision last year in November, and the Zoning Board of Appeals asked the Planning Commission to review the ordinance. And so from December to October of this year, the Planning Commission's been working on a proposed ordinance. And what we wanted to do was to allow greater use of accessory buildings of that second floor area, but we wanted to preclude apartments above garages. We wanted to figure out a fair way to determine if the upstairs would be storage or would be habitable. If it was going to be habitable, we needed to follow Michigan Building Code and make sure that there was proper fire separation so it was safe. If the upstairs was only going to be used as storage, we didn't want to require excessive fire separation. And so what we came up with is the ordinance before you. It defines a generic accessory building without defining the specific use of the building, shed, garage, to be used as storage for cars and things. We just made a general definition of accessory building to allow for the wide range of uses we've seen, whether it's an artist studio or a wood workshop, something like that. It allows a sliding scale of height relative to the distance from the neighboring property. We didn't want to have 2-story garages looming over a neighbor's property, but we did want to allow flexibility if the lot allowed for that. For accessory buildings, it offers a sliding scale for the exterior side yard setbacks on corner lots, again, relative to the distance from the neighboring property, so that we don't have, again, the looming garage in the backyard. It clearly defines when an accessory building is going to be considered 2 stories and when fire separation is going to be required. It does allow more corner lot splits in the city of Berkeley for houses by, again, allowing a sliding scale for exterior side yard setbacks relative to the distance from the neighboring property. So if you have a deeper lot, a longer lot, and you can still fit in your house and be the necessary distance from the property behind you, that lot could be split, which currently now it would not be able to. What hasn't changed is the rear yard setback stays the same, the yard location for accessory building has stayed the same, the interior side yard setback, swimming pool regulations, and again, the allowable size, the ground floor area of an accessory building has stayed the same. And the single-family residential districts will remain that, single-family residential district. So we're not going to have 2 families on a single lot. Do you have any questions?
Very good. Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Svensson? I know we spent a lot of time at the last council meeting in the work session discussing this item and refining it and so on. Are there any? So it appears to me everybody's happy then with the product of the last meeting. Seeing no questions then. Thank
Fantastic.
you, Ms. Svensson, for a wonderful job. And Ms. Prince, would you please call the roll on 0713?
Stedman,
Yes.
Turbrack,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Edgar,
Yes.
Kadeco,
Yes.
O'Dwyer.
Yes. And now, Ms. Prince, would you please read item number 4?
Ordinance number 0813, matter of approving the first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 26, Article 5, International Fire Code of the Berkeley City Code. Set date certain, second reading, December 16th, 2013.
Is there a motion to approve 0813 with the date certain?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Blanchard,
Support?
support by Councilmember Edgar. Mr. Sessa.
Council, as indicated in the memo that's prepared by our city planner, Ms. Vanson, every few years or so, the city needs to take a look at updating our international fire code to make sure that, there's been any changes or whatever have been incorporated into our ordinances as well. And these things relate to things such as storage, the handling and use of hazardous substances, materials, and devices. So we make sure that our ordinances is up to date. As you can see, also in this memorandum, our code is adopted by reference, and there are certain things such as the city's name, things of that nature, that need to be customized. I know our city planner is here to help me answer any questions that you may have, but I'm also pleased to report that our city attorney did review this as well, and he is recommending it for the city council's consideration. And we also asked our fire marshal as well to consider this and to see whether or not this is something the city council wished to do. And we are recommending it for your consideration. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this topic? I noticed most of the changes are cosmetic in a lot of ways and bringing us into compliance with national standards. So I can't imagine there's a whole lot of concern on this one.
No.
This is pretty apparent. So if there are no questions, discussion of this item, then Ms. Prince, will you please call the roll on 0813?
Turbrack,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
Edgar,
Yes.
Kadeco,
Yes.
Stedman,
Yes.
O'Dwyer.
Yes. And now, Ms. Prince, would you please read item number 5?
Motion number M6713, matter of approving an amendment to the City of Berkeley's fee schedule effective November 1st, 2013, to increase the scanner usage fee from $0 to $1 per session for residents and $2 per session for non-residents at the Berkeley Public Library.
Is there a motion to approve M6713?
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Councilmember Stedman,
Support.
support by Councilmember Blanchard. Mr. Sessa.
Council, you may recall at our last council meeting, our city's library director appeared before you, and we accepted the scanner as a donation to the city of Berkeley. And the scanner, although I don't recall the exact price, it was for about a little over $4,000 that our former library director was able to obtain for us. So now we have to maintain this scanner, and it's about, according to this memorandum, it's about $450 a year in order for us to maintain it. Now, we don't know what kind of revenue this will generate. We can't imagine that it will generate a ton, but we are asking the city council to consider a fee for those individuals that do use this we're asking, or we are recommending a fee of $1 per session for a Berkeley resident, and for a non-Berkeley resident, a $2 per session fee. And again, funds will be used to help us offset the costs of this maintenance agreement. Our library director is here with us. Mr. Matthew Church is here, and I'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
Very good. Councilmember Stedman.
I was just wondering what the definition of a session is.
I would like to explain that, but since our library director is here, I know he's anxious to help us answer questions. Mr. Church.
Good evening. We've considered that just a somewhat vague term. As long as an individual wants to use it for a given project when they come in. The other option would be a per page count, but we thought that would be too staff intensive to count out how many pages people are scanning. It doesn't grant you access to the scanner for a whole day or anything like that, but if you come in with a few documents, we would consider that a session.
Very good. Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. As for reference, are these fees imposed by any other libraries, or are we in the same ballpark as other libraries in the area?
I did a survey of area libraries. Pontiac Public Library is the only other library charging a fee, but this is a higher end machine than what most libraries are able to offer.
How much use does it get?
We haven't started promoting it aggressively. We had 4 or 5 uses in November. It is receiving a fair bit of staff usage. It's helpful to have that machine for our own uses. But once this recommendation is approved this evening, I'll send out a press release and get the word out that it's available for public use.
Very good. Mayor Pro Tem Terbrag.
Thank you, Mr. Church. Just for clarification for those in the audience, this is strictly a fee for the scanner. This has nothing to do with overdue books that somebody may or may not have currently owing you. There's no retro. Okay, good.
Correct.
Thank you. Just want to
Yes.
make sure.
Thank you.
Very good. Seeing no additional questions or discussion, then Ms. Prince, would you please call the roll on M6713?
Yes. Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Edgar?
Yes.
Kadeco?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes.
O'Dwyer?
Yes. And now, Ms. Prince, would you please read item number 6 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M6913, matter of approving the download destination participation agreement between the Berkeley Public Library and the Library Network for downloadable library content.
Is there a motion to approve M6913?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by
Support.
Councilmember Stedman with support by Mayor Pro Tem Terbrak. Mr. Sessa.
Council, I'll ask our library director, Mr. Matthew Church, to give us a brief summary of what this agreement is all about. But before he begins, so you know, this is something that the city of Berkeley has been doing for quite a amount of time, and we've been doing this since 2010. So this is a service that is not new to us, is what I'm trying to say. But the way that it's been paid and the way it's been approved, I think is something that needs to be addressed. I have discussed this matter with our library director, also with our city attorney, and because this is a service that the citizens of Berkeley receive, and I think overall the liability belongs, or the cost belongs to the city of Berkeley, I would like for the city council to consider this request for the future. Now, for now, the Friends have agreed to pay for it for this last year, and but in years to come, the city of Berkeley will be responsible for that. So with that, and just to give us a quick summation of what this is all about, Mr. Church will give us a summary. Mr. Church?
Thank you. Berkeley participates in the Library Network's downloadable destination group. We joined this group in 2010. It was a small collection of libraries participating in this group for downloadable ebooks and downloadable e-audio books. When the group initially formed, it was a fairly small group, so they didn't have a formal agreement for participation. But over the last several years, as more libraries have joined the group and there has been greater usage and more money committed to the collection, they decided that a formal participation agreement would be necessary. and benefit the libraries as well as the library network. So you have received that service agreement in advance. There's no material change to the relationship between the three groups. It just really seeks to formalize the relationship to have everyone covered. I'd like to note that attachment A in the after the memorandum is just included for reference only. That was signed off on when Berkeley joined in 2010. And as the city manager noted, the Friends of the Library have been paying for this cost for Berkeley's participation. It's a $4,200 annual cost, so we're certainly very grateful that they have provided that. When it began in 2010, we had 3 downloads in its first month. In July of this year, we had 705 downloads in a single month. So this category of material type continues to grow month after month, and it's really great that we can offer such a nice collection of materials to Berkeley residents.
Good. Thank you. Any additional discussion? Councilor Blanchard.
Quick question, Your Honor. Mr. Sabuda. Now, we're, under EVIP, we're doing all this cooperation with different units. This is a cooperation effort. Does this buy us anything with the state under the EVIP?
Absolutely. We will make sure that we list this out and make sure that it is part of our package that we give to the state of Michigan in the next round of participation.
Very good, thank
Glad
you.
to hear that.
Welcome.
Very good. Very good. Seeing no additional discussion, then, Ms. Prince, would you please call the roll on M6913?
Yes. Blanchard.
Yes.
Edgar.
Yes.
Kadeco.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
O'Dwyer.
Yes.
Thank you.
And now, Ms. Prince, would you please read item number 7?
Resolution number R4813, matter of approving a resolution and electing to comply with the provisions of Public Act 152 of 2011 by exercising the city's right to exempt itself from the requirements of the act for calendar year 2014.
Is there a motion to approve R4813?
Move to approve R 4813.
Moved to approve by Councilmember Kadeco.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Edgar. Ms. DeSessa.
Council, I know that we've discussed this very thoroughly with you. Our city auditors made mention of it again this evening with you regarding this issue. I think the letter that was put together by our finance director gives a very good overview of how this law affects us, the positive and the negative issues that we need to address regarding this issue. We are recommending that you approve this resolution for many reasons, but to give us a quick summation as to how this will affect us and why we are asking the city council to consider this, I've asked our finance director, Mr. David Sabuda, to just go over his memorandum in summary form so that the public can understand what it is that we're about to do this evening. Mr. Sabuda?
Thank you, Mrs. DeSessa, Mayor O'Dwyer, and council members. This will become an annual rite of passage. Every November, December, you will see this item come before you as long as the law is in play, as long as we are providing healthcare coverage to our active employees. Basically, you're determining how we're going to fund healthcare for the active retirees. There is, and I won't get into a lot of detail, there is a hard cap level number that is determined by the state of Michigan. You can fund healthcare at that level. You can declare by a majority vote that the employee will pay for their health care, or you can opt out. This year, it's housekeeping this year because we have agreed over a 2-year period to opt out of through the labor contracts, opt out of having employees fund the health care contract because we've negotiated this with all 3 of the unions. So really, this year, your hands are tied. We're in the opt-out position. Next year, a whole different story. We'll come back again. The labor contracts are up June 30th, and we will be negotiating, and then we'll be talking with council and our labor strategies as to where we're going to go. And I don't want to get into that this evening or on the open council floor, but then we'll have to determine where we're going to go as we progress through life through the contract process this year, and then you'll have that decision next year. But right now, this year, this is a housekeeping item. We have to opt out. We've agreed to that with the labor unions, and that's the position we're in tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Sessa.
Council, I appreciate what our finance director has indicated, but also just to assure the viewing public that when we negotiate the contracts, the employees did negotiate what I think was a fair agreement, and they also were willing to reduce, in some cases, their costs for their services for their health care. So they are now paying more into health care than they have ever before. So again, I'd like to assure the city council and the public that just because we're not complying with or agreeing to some of the other items that we are permitted, it does not mean that the employees are not having to pay more into insurance. I can assure you that more than ever before, the employees are now having to pay for their insurance. Their costs are a lot higher than they were in the past, and it's based more on a user. So if you need to use the insurance, then at that time, your costs do increase. So
if I could add on to Mrs. DeSessa's comments, I think the auditors alluded to that fact when they had their last slide up. Liabilities were estimated over $20 million. So we negotiated downward our liability to around $17, $18 million. How did we do that? Well, we went to a broader package of health care, and we raised deductibles, we raised copays. I shouldn't say we raised, but we negotiated deductibles and copays much larger than in years past, and that's been continuing. And we've seen our bill to a certain extent come down, and you can see that our liability has come down, and that's been the biggest help to us in getting our costs under control. So when all that was negotiated, it was a 2-year deal, and we're entering into the second year.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Turbright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All the things that you just mentioned, the various concessions that our unions have taken over time, when you say that we're here tonight and our hands are tied, I don't think our hands are tied. I think we're here because this council made a conscious decision to do that on the part, on behalf of whatever we could do in these negotiations. We certainly are well aware of the increased costs that our unions have had to incur over the last few negotiation cycles, and we understand that, and we certainly appreciate what they've done, the sacrifices that they've made to ensure that we can continue to allow the services that our residents come to expect from us. So, it's not that this was just a negotiating ploy that was thrown in there. It's something that we as a council spoke about and wanted to make sure that this was part of the package going forward. So although it's a formality tonight, because we already, said that this is something that we were looking to do back in the negotiations, I just want to make sure that people are aware of that. It's not just, something that came up and we had no idea and it just happened. We wanted this to happen.
Great. Mr. Sessa.
Now, Mr. Mayor, even as we discussed this with the staff, so again, the public knows, as the finance director and as our Mayor Pro Tem has indicated, this is a decision that we had made when we negotiated those agreements. Please know, City Council, that your vote tonight, if this is approved, this is done because this is what you've decided to do at this period in time. If you choose not to do this, then obviously, again, that will have an impact on us as well and our agreement. So again, this is something that we've talked about, that we agreed to do. Does it mean that it has to happen? No, we discussed that with the unions even when we went before them, and they know this up front, that the City Council could potentially, take a different turn. The only thing we could say to them was, this is what we would recommend to them, and we are meeting that obligation. So again, respectfully, we are requesting you to consider this, our recommendation favorably.
Very good.
Mr. Mayor, if the council does decide not to vote for this, then what would happen is we would be considered out of compliance. We would be considered a hard cap option municipality, and then we would not meet the hard cap option criteria, and we would lose approximately $16,244 for the fiscal year.
Very good. Can't imagine the council not voting for this.
Yeah.
Even without the $16,000. Before we have the vote, I'll just make one little small point, is that it's going to take 5 votes to pass this.
That is correct.
And so, Ms. Prince, would you please call the roll on R 4813?
Edgar,
Yes.
Kadeco,
Yes.
Stedman,
Yes.
Turbe,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
O'Dwyer.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you all. And now we come to the communications portion of tonight's meeting, and who should be first?
Councilmember Kadeco.
Councilmember Kadeco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, first of all, I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I want to officially thank the Honorable Lisa Platt-Onson for the work she does and will continue to do for our city. I just want to let you know, Lisa, it was a pleasure working with you. And Councilmember Edgar, I'm really looking forward to working with you. We've spoken a little bit before the last meeting, and I look forward to many years with you by my side. I want to wish everybody a happy Hanukkah that's celebrating Hanukkah out there. There's a couple more days left. You know, a lot of times when you win with many around you, but when you're in an adverse situation, you're there alone. But I can say that it's so untrue. The support, the friendships, the visits, the phone calls, the cards, the meals, the support I have had during my recent illness, being in a hospital for 23 days, visited by many of you, calls and text messages from many of you, pictures drawn by little Addison Turbeck and the 4 Wittenberg girls of Judge and Stacy Wittenberg. It just brings smiles to you. The staff at Beaumont Hospital, the ninth floor, 9 North. I can't give enough kudos to the nurses and the nursing assistants. My late father taught me when I was going for my swimming lesson as a kid, PMA, positive mental attitude. And my distinguished colleague, I don't mean to steal any quotes from you, but I just want to say that I am going to walk my 8.5 miles again. I can't walk 20 feet right now, but I am going to walk my 8.5 miles again. And even though everybody's been great, we do call it the practice of medicine for a reason, because after 6 months, they still can't figure out what's happening with my health. But I'll tell you, I'm here, and I'm here for the long haul. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Edgar.
Thank you. I want to thank Alan for his warm welcome and also for his words of wisdom through the past couple months that I've gotten to know you, and glad you're by my side tonight. Let's hope it happens again in the next couple weeks.
Great.
I'd also like to personally invite everyone to come to the Hometown Holidays Saturday. I think it's such a wonderful thing that our community does. Not only the sleigh ride and the petting zoo and the parade and all of the holiday hoopla, and if you've looked around your neighborhood streets, you can see it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. We certainly do participate here in Berkeley. But also shop local. You know, go to your stores, go to your restaurants. They're just wonderful. And enjoy the holiday and have it begin here.
Mayor Pro Tem Turbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Continuing on that theme, certainly looking forward to participating in my 7th hometown holiday parade coming up this weekend. It certainly is a great time for the residents. As was mentioned earlier, the residents, not just of Berkeley, but surrounding communities come together, and the children are all very, very excited to see the big man in red kind of bring up the rear there at the end of the parade. I know my daughters are certainly excited to see him, although they don't want to get very close to him at this point. Along with that, we have a couple other events coming up. Skating with Santa. Get on the holiday spirit this season by joining us for our annual Skate with Santa. Hit the ice with jolly old St. Nick, skate with your friends and family, and have fun caroling around the ice. That is Sunday, December 8th at the Ice Arena from 5 to 7 p.m. Admission is free with the donation of 2 canned goods for St. Vincent de Paul. There's $2 to rent skates if you need those. But again, that is Sunday, December 8th from 5 to 7. And then coming up Saturday, December 14th, we have the Candy Cane Lane Craft Show at the Community Center. Admission to that is free. We'll be having an hourly raffle for shoppers to win items donated by the crafters. Also a bake sale. Lunch will be available for purchase. The proceeds of the show go to the Berkeley Junior Women's Club to benefit community service programs in the Berkeley Junior Women's Club. I'm sure those of you are aware do tremendous amount of service in and around the city, and they are a big part of what we do, and I'm sure they will be a part of the holiday parade this Saturday. So please come out and support them as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Baker.
Thank you, Your Honor, and a good evening again, everybody here. Continuing that same thing, I'm very much looking forward to the festivities this weekend and into the coming weeks, continuing the festivities the coming weeks here as we celebrate all that we have to be thankful for and appreciate in our community, the volunteers, the employees, our residents, our neighbors, our families, the businesses. It's a tremendous time to be here, and would welcome you to join us at the many activities throughout the day, in particular on Saturday. Dress warm, be safe out there, watch for these slippery conditions. I guess the rain should be earlier in the week, but you never know, there might be something out there, so please be careful as you come out and enjoy all that we have to offer. There's a couple other items that might be of interest to you. One in particular is the Transit Open House. I've mentioned this before, so I won't spend too much time on it, but it's coming up. It's this week's Thursday at 5:30 at our community center. What it is an opportunity for us to come together to talk about regional transit, and in particular our Woodward Corridor, looking at the opportunities that such a system would provide. This will be one of the most precise conversations that we've had to date. This is actually our third open house town hall session over the past year. So we've had many great conversations talking concept and general ideas around how transit might work. This one, we're really going to see some specific ideas and engage us in detailed conversations around the pros and cons of different configurations of the system. If you guys are interested, we actually have materials. This is volume 2 of the mass transit implementation guide. I know some of you just can't wait to read all 140-something pages of this here. I'm kidding. You're probably not all that interested, and it's more than 140 pages. But the details are there for those who are interested. But for most of us, it's really about what is this transit thing and why does it matter to us? And I really hope that those issues can be explored. Just as a light taste of some of those things, Metro Detroit is the only large metropolitan area that does not have a regional mass transit system. And that puts us at a lot of disadvantages. When we think about the region and our ability to attract and retain talent, to make our sense of place here desirable, not only for those of us that are here, but to bring others to join with us and to celebrate all that we have. We need to be competitive. And to be able to compete, we need to have the kinds of services and capabilities that other cities and regions across the country and around the world have to offer. When we think about the ability to attract major industries, businesses, significant events, venues, things like that, they look for not only is the region supportive to their industry or whatever it is, but how will people get there, right? How will the workers get back and forth every day? How will the employees have a chance to go about doing their business? How can they bring in potential customers and clients and things? So that's just one of the many kinds of things that we'll talk about from the value of a transit system. And of course, what will it mean for us here in Berkeley? We have the pleasure of sharing a tremendous resource and asset called Woodward Avenue with 10 other communities, and that is the subject of this particular conversation is Woodward. But keep in mind that we're talking about a regional transit system, and so the journey that we're taking here as part of this is tremendous in so many ways to see how can we help take a step forward and also set the pattern for the rest of the region. There are others along other major corridors that will be taking this journey in the months and years to come, and we can help provide them with a blueprint and template of how to have a high-quality conversation so that we can understand and appreciate all that transit can and should offer for all of us. And speaking of awareness, it was Lori Myers who once said, when the awareness of what is achievable brushes your life, your journey has begun. And again, that's when the awareness of what is achievable brushes your life, your journey has begun. When we think about what's achievable with things like transit, even just the ability to be here to participate, my colleague, I'm so thankful that you're back with us and continuing your journey. That so much is achievable when we're here together. There's so many things for us to be aware of. Just wanted to make a point of a couple of things. Today, actually, December 2nd is National Mutt Day. Mutt, like the dogs. We're sometimes so unaware of all the need out there, especially this time of year. There's so many animals that need a good home. If you haven't had an opportunity to foster or rescue or be a part of that, please check it out. Today is a day to help raise awareness around that. This week is, I probably knew this week is National Hand Washing Awareness Week. It's important to stay safe and clean and germs free. This month is also Universal Human Rights Month. It's an opportunity to understand more of what it means to engage with one another and to be fair and equitable and understand how we together make this planet a better place. And last but not least, given the holiday season, the opportunity to look for gifts, especially for the males in your family, it's some hesitation that I mentioned that this is National Tie Month. Now, I don't suggest that as a favorite holiday gift, but I just wanted to let you know that it is National Tie Month as well. So, whatever opportunities that may bring you, large or small. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Stedman.
Well, first of all, I would like everyone to just have a wonderful time this weekend at the holiday festivities, the Holiday Lights Parade, and everything that's happening throughout the day and the evening, and the following weekend. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Blanchard.
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Sesson.
Mr. Mayor, just a few items. Just to give a quick reminder to the City Council that this coming Friday, December the 6th, we have a council work session. Ordinarily, we have a goal session to update our goals, but this time I'm going to take a different path, and I'm going to ask the City Council to sit down with staff and myself to discuss some key issues for the future for the City of Berkeley, in which I need some direction. Also at this meeting, I've asked a representative from MML. I can't think of his exact title, except that he is a very, very important individual. Arnold.
Weinfeld, yeah.
Yes, Weinfeld.
Yep.
Mr. Weinfeld will be with us, and he is going to begin the session by talking to the City Council and discussing critical characteristics of what makes a good city even greater, and what does it take in order for us to begin developing, and dare I say this, because I know we've heard it, is the placemaking, making of place. And I'm really proud to say that I was part of this when it first started, and now it's gotten even bigger. And as we go through this, I'm very pleased to say that the City of Berkeley has done many of these things in order to make the City of Berkeley this placemaking area. But we still have ways to go. And so Arnold will be there with us to talk about this, to again remind you all are the key characteristics of what a great city needs to have in order to progress. And then after that, we're going to sit down and talk about some of the key things that I need some direction from you. And together with the assistance from our staff, we will begin developing those steps, and I will know which direction to take. So that's a very key meeting. It's on Friday, December the 6th. I don't know if some of you can all make it for everything, but at least hopefully you'll be able to attend all or part of it, but we shall see. I'm so glad that everybody's mentioning the Christmas lights parade that's coming up this coming Saturday, but I'd also like to mention that the DDA is doing something a little extra this year in order to help promote our businesses during this time. They have decided to spend a little of their promotional dollars to help fund the trolley that the city, through its DDA, is going to be able to fund. And then plus, they're working together with the Chamber of Commerce so that they can work with the businesses to help promote themselves. I know that the schools and some other choirs will be set at some specific areas. So when you let's say you take the trolley, You may also be greeted by some carolers as well, and some will also maybe provide some hot chocolate while you're out there shopping. So, please visit our website for more information on this. You can also go to the Chamber's website and get some more data. Also, just a quick reminder to everybody that the Beautification Committee is also having their contest, and they're out right now. I know it's still a little early, but hopefully everyone's out there putting up their Christmas lights, and they're going to be reviewing or determining or recommending to City Council who is the best lighted resident and obviously the best lighted Christmas business as well. So they've got a couple of awards that they want to recognize individuals for just taking that extra step to just further beautify our community through their lighting. And I'd like to thank our city auditors, Plant Moran, for their presentation this evening. As I mentioned earlier, this is our report card to the residents as to how we're doing. I'm very, very pleased to inform the City Council and to the residents of Berkeley that our budgets are in order and that we are doing a good job. So thank you to City Council, thank you to staff, everybody. This is definitely a team effort. And then just finally, again, just remind everybody, please, on any of the events that we've talked about tonight, go to the city's website, which is www.berkeleymish.org, and you'll be able to get more details. So again, thank you, everybody. Mr. Mayor, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Mr. Sabuda.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. I'd like to take this opportunity to again let everyone know that we have an opening on the Berkeley Public Safety Pension Board. We are looking for one dynamic individual to fill one open seat. If anyone's interested, please go to the website, the clerk's area. On the website, boards and commissions, you can pick up a application there and fill it out and return it to Mrs. DeSessa's office, and we will take it from there. And that'll do it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney.
Mayor, I have nothing this evening.
Well, thank you. I get to do lots of wonderful things as mayor of the city, but the highlight of my role as mayor of the city is to represent the boys and girls of this town and hand the key of the city to Santa Claus. It is a magical experience to see the joy in the eyes of those children. And I'm so looking forward to the Holiday Lights Parade and the arrival of the big guy, because it begins the celebration that I think when you look at life in general, there needs to be bright spots and things that we look forward to and celebrate together as a community, and this is one of them. It's one of our signature events now for the past several years. Paul and Marcia Swayze have done a remarkable job over the years leading up that effort, and we're thankful to them and all of the volunteers who make it possible. And that's all I have also this evening. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn by Councilmember Kadekel with support by Councilmember Stedman. Ms. Prince, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Kadekel?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Edgar?
Yes.
O'Dwyer?
Yes. The December 2nd, 2013 meeting of the 35th Council is adjourned.